How you doing there? Welcome back to Babylon Talmud. Today we're studying Daf Memches, Daf 48 of Masechta BavaMetzia. Friends, your friends. My aunt just passed away a few hours ago. So let's learn for her. Her name is Cyril Tilla Bas Moshe. Okay, so, alright, well, we're just going to go weiter. Okay, we're going to start on Daf Mem Zayin with base, 4 lines from the bottom. Tanan, Aval Amru Mishapar Midor Amabel U Asli Par Mimi She'eno Omed B'Diburo. Okay, fine. So this, of course, ties into is related to our Mishnah, and it relates to machlokas between Rabbi Yochanan and Rish Lakish regarding how exactly does a kinyan work? Is it the money or is it the meshicha? So we had said in our Mishnah that, you know, if you go to buy a slice of pizza, so when you pay the pizza monger, so it doesn't, that's not the kinyan, right? We say the kinyan happens when you pick up the pizza. So if you pay the pizza monger, but you haven't yet received and picked up your pizza, so technically speaking, either one could still be choser. Either one could still renege. The pizza eater can decide he's not hungry. The pizza monger could decide he doesn't want, it's not for sale anymore. However, you shouldn't do that because we said, Tanan, Aval Amru, they said, Mishapar Midor Amabel, the Eibishter, who paid retribution from the Dor Mabu, who also Lipara, he's going to retribute Mimi She'eno Omed B'Diburo, from somebody who does not stick to their word. That if you committed to eating pizza, eat pizza. So I understand if you say like Rabbi Yochanan that money makes an acquisition. For that reason, koi be'avel, right? That's why there's kind of this like, you know, hey, if you don't stick to your word, it's pretty modno. Eli omet mos einon konis, but if you say that, look, money doesn't do jack squat, well then amai koi be'avel. Well then, why are we getting so dramatic over here? Kilu, you gave money to the pizza monger. If you're a shlakish, giving money to a pizza monger does jack squat. So until you pick it up, nothing's happened. And now we're saying, and if you renege, then the Eibishter is going to get you like he got the people in the generation of the flood. For what? So, and for the Gemara, Mishum Devar, because of his word. I guess he said that he's interested in buying a piece of pizza. So you should stick to that. Uvidvarim mikoi ba'avel. Okay, fine. It's very good. It's very. It's a good. It's a good musar shmuz. But at the end of the day, is that going to be enough reason for retribution like the generation of the flood? But we learn in a brayser, Reb Shimon Omer says Reb Shimon, Afal Pisha Amu, even though they said talis kona dino zav ve'ein dinner zav kona talis, even though they said that the item, that the peiros are kona the mos, right? That when you pick up a garment, that is what makes the kinyan. Ve'ein dinner zav kona talis, but giving the money is not what makes the acquisition. It's picking up. It's making the kinyan. It's doing a meshicha. But nonetheless, kach halache aval amru, that, but they nonetheless said mishapar me'anshe doramabo me'anshe dorafloge, that once you pay for something, even if you haven't picked it up yet, then the Eibishter who paid retribution from the people of the generation of the flood, me'anshe dorafloge, and the people from the generation of the Migdal Bavel, me'anshe Sodom v'Amora, and from Sodom and Gomorrah, u'mitzrayim bayom, and the Egyptians at the sea, who asid lipara mimisha no'omed b'diburo, is going to exact retribution from somebody who does not stick to his word. All right. V'anose v'nosin b'dvarim And here we go. Somebody who kind of does business verbally, lo kana, so it's not a kinyan if you're just saying things. But nonetheless, if you retract from your statement, the spirit of the sages, I don't know, is not with him. Okay, fine. So the spirit of the sages is not with him, but not mishapara. Okay, so somebody doesn't stick to his word. Okay, so the spirit of the sages is not with him, but he's not in violation of the Eibishter is going to get you. So it depends. If there's a verbal commitment plus a financial transaction, so then you have to watch out for divine retribution. So for example, if you tell the pizza monger, I'm interested in buying a piece of pizza, and you give him money for it, so then if you renege, you better watch out, better watch your back for divine retribution. But if there's just words with no money changing hands, lo koi ba'avel, so then there won't be any divine retribution. Maybe the spirit of the sages will not be with him, but there won't be divine retribution there. Omar Rovi, says Rovi, kro umasniso misayeya le lirish lakish, that we have both a posik as well as a braise that support Rish Lakish, that it's all about the Meshicha, it's all about picking it up. The pasuk, as it says by Oshum Gezelis, if you steal something and you deny it and you swear about it and then you admit it, so you bring an Oshum Gezelis. So it says V'kichesh ba'amito, if a person denies having B'pikadon, a deposit, he denies having a deposit, or b'tzumes yad, or by a loan, okay, or b'gazel, or he denies having stolen epis, or oshak esamito, or an employer withholds money from employees and claims that no such, and the employer says no such claim exists. So tzumes yad, what's this loan? Rav Chizda says, Rav Chizda kigon sheyiched lo kli lalva also. So if Shimon lends $1,000 to Reuven, and then Reuven says, "Okay, Shimon, I'm going to give you a collateral, an object for collateral," but he never actually ends up giving it to Shimon, and then I believe he denies the loan, so then he's also denying that collateral. And that would be Oshum Gezelos, in Oshum Gezelos. Now, what's interesting about that scenario is that Shimon never did a kinyan Meshicha, right? What's in it? So what's interesting about that is that Shimon never did a kinyan Meshicha over there, right? That meaning Reuven said, right? So Shimon lent Reuven $1,000. Reuven said he's going to give him a collateral, but he never actually gave it to him. Okay. So when it comes to Oshak, when it comes to an employer who denies that he owes employees wages, so here as well, it's talking about where the employer had set aside some kind of a collateral for the money that was owed, and then he subsequently denied it. Okay. Now okay, and then when it talks about what exactly, the actual Oshum Gezelos and the Chomesh and the other things he has to do, Ksiv, it says, and it will be if he sins and he's guilty. So he has to return the gezela, the theft, or it's a oshek, or the withheld wages, asher oshak, that he withheld waged. O esapikoden asher hofkad et ito, or the collateral that he had denied. Vilut sumas yad lo ahadre, But conspicuously, the loan is missing. So while we mentioned the loan initially, and we said it's talking about where Reuven had said that he's going to give Shimon a collateral, and then he denies it. So I think he denies the loan, including the collateral. So we said in that case, don't do it. But then when kind of going over all of these things that he did wrong, we leave out the loan. My time, how come it was left out when we start talking about sort of ramifications? Lav mishum de mechzera mishicha? Is it not because there was no mishicha? And therefore, Shimon never actually took ownership of it. And therefore, there's no Asham Gizelos for it. So meaning, we're saying that there's a scenario where Shimon lent Reuven $1,000. Reuven said, I'm going to give you a collateral. He never gave the collateral to Shimon. So therefore, Shimon never was kona that collateral b'mishicha. He never made a kinyan mishicha. And that is why seemingly there won't be an Asham Gizelos for it. Because there's no Mashiach, there needs to be a Mashiach. Rav Papa says to Rav, but Ema me Oshek, he, the Hadre Kra. Yeah, but maybe that's not really such a good proof, because after all, when it comes to withholding wages, that was also, right, Rav Chizda also said, it's talking about where he had set aside, he had designated a collateral for it, and the employee had never done a kinyan mashich on it, and yet still we list that when going over the asham me'iloses, the asham gizeloses, and therefore why don't we simply say that, well, just like by Oshek there's an asham gizelos, so then we'll say the same thing also by this collateral, by tzumas yad. So Achav Ma'askin, and well, by the Oshek, we're talking about Kigon Shenatlu Mimenu V'chazu V'efkido Etzlo. Well, by the wages, what happened was the employee had taken the collateral that the employer had set aside for him, picked it up. The employee had picked it up and then given it back to the employer to watch for him, and therefore there actually was a kinyan meshicha. And that is why there would be a Asham Gizelos, but by the loan, where there was no such kinyan Meshicha, so then there would not be an Asham Gizelos. Hainu Pikadon, but then if we're talking about where the employee picked it up and then gave it back to the employer to watch, so then that's Be'etzim a Pikadon, it's a deposit. So Trey Gavne Pikadon, well, there's two types of deposits. Okay. Alright, I guess there's deposits where Shimon just gives something to Reuven to watch for, but there's deposits where employees pick things up and then give them back to their employers, I guess. Okay, so Yachi Tzumas Yad Nami Lihadre V'lukme Kigon Shenatlo Hemen V'chazav Kido Etzlo. But then the Gemara asks, well, alright, if that's the case, that we're saying that by Pikadon, if that's the case that we're saying that by that by Oshak, that by the wages, it's talking about where the employee had picked it up and then given it back to watch. So then why don't we just have the same thing with Tzumas Yad as well? Include Tzumas Yad in the pasuk and say it's talking about where Shimon, the lender, had picked it up and then given it back. So why not include that as well, right? If we can include the wages, right, where he had set aside a collateral, so let's also include the loan where he had set aside a collateral. So yeah, but the thing is that if the pasuk would have done that, would have included both Oshak as well as Tzumas Yad, well then you lose out the opportunity to be a support for Rish Lakish, right? The whole point of it being a support for Rish Lakish comes from the fact that one of them is there and the other one is not. Oshak was there, from which we say, well, the only reason why it's there is because he had already picked it up, but we leave out Tzumas Yad so that you'll ask, so that there will be a difference. So that it'll be like, why is one there and not the other one? Oh, because it's talking about in a scenario where Shimon, the loner, never picked it up and did a kinyan meshicha, then there would not be an asam gezelos, because in order for it to be a proper kinyan, there needs to be a meshicha. So dafka, from the fact that by tzumes yad we leave it out, that is dafka how we know to learn from here that meshicha is important. That meshicha is how to make a kinyan. And now that the pasuk has dafka left out tzumes yad, that is how we can learn out. That's how it could be a support for Rish Lakish. V'tzumes yad lo ahadre kra. But is that really the case, that the pasuk does not include tzumes yad? V'atanya. But we learn in a Brisa, Omer, Reb Shimon says, how do we know that all of the items included above, including tzumes yad, are also later on when we talk about that you have to bring an osham gezelos? How do we know that they're all included, including tzumes yad? Omikol asher. Let me see something. Yeah. Omikol asher yishava olav la shoker. All of the things that he swears falsely about, including tzumes yad. V'amar Nachman, Amar Rav Barvua, Amar Rav l'rabos tzumes yad leishavon. To include tzumes yad that needs to be returned, and that there's asham gezelos there. So apparently tzumes yad is included. Yeah, but behedramia lo ahadre kra. Yeah, but it's not explicit, and because it's not explicit, it gives us an opportunity to learn out that midaraisa you have to do a kinyan meshicha in order to be kohen. Okay? So that's the pasuk from the whole thing with tzumes yad. Masnisa minolan. Where's the brisa that we learn out like Rish Lakish? The tani that we learn in the brisa, nosna lebalon mal. If you have a coin of hektish, you can't get benefit from it. If you give it by accident to a bathhouse attendant to take care of you in the bathhouse, so mo'al. So then by giving the coin to the bathhouse attendant, so then you're chayiv an osher me'ilos. V'amar Rav, and says Rav, davka balan hu d'lo mechsera meshicha. Yeah, specifically in scenarios like a bathhouse attendant who's offering a service rather than a product. So then that is why the me'ilah would be when the bathhouse attendant receives the coin. But for example, if you're buying a piece of pizza where there is a product, something that you could actually pick up, well then lomal ad demashich, you would only be over a me'ilah when there's a meshicha. So if no meshicha is possible, for example, like a bathhouse attendant who's not giving you any product per se, he's providing a service, so then no meshicha necessary. And the me'ilah in this case would be when the bathhouse attendant receives the coin. But if you're receiving a product in return, such as a piece of pizza or wheat, so then you'll be the kinyan, and in this case the me'ilah would be when you pick it up. V'atane b'ulon in a brisa, nosno l'saper ma'al. If you give money to the barber, you pay a barber with money accidentally with hektish money. So then you are going to have to bring a korban me'ilah when you give the money to the barber. But I guess when you get a haircut, you could technically pick up the scissors. That's interesting. Okay, fine. Well, achab ma'askinin b'saper nochri. All right. Well, here we're talking about a barber who is he's not Jewish, so therefore there's no din of kinyan like this. The lab bar meshicha, that there's no din meshicha by a nochri, so therefore it would be when he receives the money. Tanan Amiyachi, we also learn in a brayso like this, Nasr l'saper, l'sapon, olcho bale umanus, that if you give the money to a barber or to a boatman, okay, or to any skilled worker, lo ma'al ad demashach, there's not going to be me'ilah until you do a kinyan meshicha on whatever their tools are. I don't know. So kashin adadi. So on the one hand, we're saying that by a barber it's immediately me'ila when you give the money. On the other hand, we say that it's only me'ila when you pick up the scissors or whatever. So elav shmamina kam besaper nochri kam besaper Yisrael, that the distinction must be, it depends if he is a nochri or a yid. Shmamina. V'chein omer Rav Nachman, and so says Rav Nachman Tvar Torah, ma'os, konos, that mida oraisa. Okay, so now Rav Nachman though taka holds like Rabbi Yochanan. Right? V'chein omer Rav Nachman holds like Rabbi Yochanan that Tvar Torah ma'os konos. That really mida oraisa money is kone. Uvadko Levi b'masnise, and Levi checked his brises because Levi had his own collection of brises. Rashi says Uvadko Levi masnise higia v'osifa b'tosefta shesider. That he also, right, Reb Chia and Reb Oshaya had a sort of collection of brises in their tosefta. Levi had his own. Okay, so he checked. So Uvadka Levi b'masnisa, or maybe Taka added into his brisa. Ve'ashkach, I don't know. It sounds like he checked maybe and he found Nosna lisiton mo'al. Okay, so this is talking about a scenario. So this is talking about a scenario where you have like a wholesaler who wholesales fruits. Okay, and he sells lots of fruits to like smaller fruit mongers who are poorer and can't necessarily afford to buy in bulk, and they just kind of forward, they kind of like set a deposit initially, and then he gives them kind of a little bit of fruit at a time, and as they sell it and make the money, they pay him with it, etc. So here they are receiving a product, right? So meaning, these store owners kind of give the money, and then they receive the product, but they don't receive all of it. And yet, we're saying what? That it's a properly nasna l'siton ma'al. That if they use money of me'ila, when they give the money, that's when the me'ila is. But since they're getting a product in return, shouldn't they have to pick up all of the products in order for it to be me'ila and a meshicha? So rather, from the fact that we say it's me'ila, it must actually be that money is konen. So the kasha the Rish Lakish, it's a kasha Rish Lakish, Amar Rish Lakish, Amar Rish Lakish. How money Reb Shimon? That's Reb Shimon's opinion, right? Because Rish Lakish says that Reb Shimon, that according to Reb Shimon, it would be ma'os konos, but Rish Lakish says I hold like the Rabbanon, and that it's Meshicha is what's konos. So you would say that brisa is taka the opinion of Reb Shimon, who says that ma'os konos. Aval amru, but they said mishepara v'chulei. Okay, right. So the Mishnah had said that even if you give the money. Right, one second, let me check something, make sure. Okay, Itmar, it was stated Abai, okay, fine. Okay, so there's the whole Misha Para thing, right? Okay, so if you give the money, and then, you, even though you haven't done a Mashiach yet, so you can technically still renege, but if you do, then you're in big trouble. So Imar was stated Abai, Omar says Abai, Odue Modainon Lei. Okay, so Abai says that what we do is that we tell him, right? So meaning, if you say, hey, I'd like one regular slice of pizza, and he says okay, and he tells you how much it costs, and you pay him, and then you say, actually, wait, forget it, I'm not hungry. So we explain to the pizza eater, we say, look, you could renege, but you're going to get in trouble like the generation of the flood. Rava Omar says, Milet Laitinale. Rava says we pasha curse him out. We said, really? After you already paid for the pizza, you're going to renege? You're going to get cursed like the people of the generation of the flood. You should be cursed like the people of the generation of the flood. So Abaye Omar Odui Modainale. Abaye says we simply let him know that he's going to be in big trouble if he reneges. Tichsiv, as the pasuk says, "V'nosi b'am chalosar." Do not do not curse people. Right? Rav Omer says, Rav Milet Latinanle. that we can curse him because dichsid ba'amcha, bosim ma'aseh amcha, right? It says that nasi ba'amcha losar. Yeah, don't curse people who are good, upright people, but people who renege on their pizza orders, that's a different story. Amar Rava says, Rava, how do I know that we can actually curse the person? Because Reb Chia bar Yosef sold a whole bunch of salt. Sold a whole bunch of salt. Okay? Sold a whole bunch of salt. 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 They gave him money for a whole bunch of salt. He was selling, I don't know, $100 worth of salt, and they paid him for it, but they had not yet received their salt. Aikar milcha, but then the price of salt went up, and he's like, wait, shneikis, I could actually make more money on this. So he came before Rabbi Yochanan and says, what should I do? They haven't yet acquired the salt with the kinyan Mashiach. I received the money though. Can I just give them back the money and then I could sell it for more? Amar lei. So Rabbi Yochanan says to Reb Chia bar Yosef, Zil hav lehu ve'ilo kabil alach alecha mishapora. You better make sure that you deliver on that salt, because if you don't, then you renege. So then you're going to run into issues with the whole generation of the flood thing. V'amar do a moda'inon lei. And if it enters your mind that it's like Abaye, that we have to let him know that if he reneges, then he's going to be in trouble like the generation of the flood. Rav Chia bar Yosef, what, do you think Rav Chia bar Yosef didn't know this? So therefore it must be that it's not that we're letting him know. But then fact the Gemara, but what, Rava, why is your approach any better? Right? So you're saying that instead we're going to curse him? Rav Chia bar Yosef, kabule ole latusa. What, Reb Chia bar Yosef's really going to get to a place where he's going to be chayiv to be cursed? No, this is talking about something else. Latusa de Rabbanon, Ela Reb Chia bar Yosef, a ravon hu de yaivi lei. No, rather this was actually a different scenario. It's not talking about where he was selling $100 worth, what did I say, $1,000? Where he was selling $1,000 worth of salt, and they didn't take the salt yet, so he wants to renege so he could sell it for more. No, that is not what it's talking about. 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 Where am I? A ravunu diyavele. Rather, they had given him a down payment. He was selling them $1,000 worth of salt, and they had only given him so far $100 worth of it. So what he was wondering was, who saver kinegdo hu kone. So he thought that maybe since they only gave him $100 worth of it, maybe he only needs to give them back $100 worth of salt, right? Meaning, the whole thing of mishapara, about being in big trouble like the generation of the flood if you renege, well, technically he only received $100 worth of it. Maybe the whole reneging and mishapara thing is only for what he received. So he received $100. Okay, so you for sure has to make good on $100 worth. What about the remaining $900 worth of salt that he received a down payment for, but he never actually received payment for? Now it was understood that they were going to give him the rest of the money, they were going to get the rest of that salt, but he didn't technically receive. He received a down payment for $100 down payment, but he hasn't received the rest. Maybe he could say, look, I'll give you $100 worth of salt, but I'm keeping the rest and selling it for more money. So who saver kinegdo ukone? So Reb Chia bar Yosef thought that maybe the $100 down payment just meant that he had to was sort of committed to giving them $100 worth of salt, and that he can keep the remaining $900 worth of salt and sell it for more. Rabbi Yochanan says no. Kineged kulo hu kone. No. Once they gave you the down payment, then it already acquires all of it. They obviously need to pay you the rest, but just like you'd be unable to renege on $100 worth of it, you can't renege on any of it. Okay, fine. Okay. Itmari was stated a ravon. Okay, when it comes to a down payment, Rav Omar kinegdo hu kone. So Rav says that actually, unlike Rabbi Yochanan, so Rav disagrees with Rabbi Yochanan and says no. When somebody gives a down payment, so the seller is only committed to providing the equivalent at least of what he received. Rabbi Yochanan Omer was Rabbi Yochanan says Keneged Kula Ukona that no, once you give a down payment, you acquire all of it. Of course, you have to pay the remainder of it, but you've already the acquisition is done. Nobody can renege for any amount of it. Meis, we have a kasha on Rav, right? Rav had said that when you put down a down payment, it's only the seller is only sort of committed to the equivalent of the down payment. But Meis, okay, if Reuven gives a down payment to Shimon, V'Omer lo, and he says to Shimon, Im ani chozer bi, he says, Shimon, if I end up reneging, ervoni machu l'cha, keep the down payment. V'ala Omer, and Shimon says, Im ani achzor bi, if I renege, echpo l'cha ervoncha, not only will I give you back your down payment, I'll double it. This kai matnoim to Rabbi Yossi. Rabbi Yossi says, okay, fine. Then whatever they just committed to, fine. Rabbi Yossi, at the time, Rabbi Yossi is according to his reasoning, parenthetically, the Amar Asmach Takanya, that Rabbi Yossi says Asmach Takanya, which means that even things that are kind of like exaggerated, meaning both Reuven and Shimon were not planning on reneging on the deal, right? They made a deal, right? That Reuven was going to buy something from Shimon, and they had already given a down payment. Nobody was planning on reneging, and they said, you know what? Reuven says, if I renege, keep the down payment. Shimon says, if I renege, I'll double the down payment. Nobody was planning on reneging, right? So the shaila is, right, because they were kind of like, making these commitments that were entirely theoretical. The question is, are if they do end up reneging, are they held to that? Rabbi Yossi says yes. Now, Rabbi Yehuda Omer, now this is the part that's relevant for the question. Rabbi Yehuda Omer says, Rabbi Yehuda, Dayu sheyikne kneged ervono, that actually, the money that Reuven gives to Shimon as this down payment, he's actually being koneh that part of the kinyan, right? So meaning according to the first way, right, the down payment wasn't actually koneh anything, and if they renege, then there's no sale at all. They had committed maybe to, well, I'll lose the down payment or I'll double the down payment, whatever, but like there is no sale of the item itself. Whereas Rabbi Yehuda says that when there's a down payment, the down payment does acquire what's being purchased up to the value of the down payment. Right? So Dayo sheyikne kneged ervona, that it acquires the value of the down payment. Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, and explains Reb Shimon ben Gamliel, when does Reb Yehuda say that it acquires the value of the down payment? Bisman she'omar lo, specifically, if he says, if Reuven stipulates ervoni yikon, that specifically this down payment should acquire its value. But if Stam, Reuven is buying a house or a field for 1,000 zuz, and he pays a down payment to Shimon of 500 zuz, and doesn't specify that I am now acquiring 500 zuz worth of the property. No, he just gave a down payment for all of the property. Well, Reuven, by giving the down payment, has acquired the house or the field. And it's a $1,000 field. He paid $500 as a down payment. He now owns the field, and he has to pay back the rest over time. So we see that by default, the down payment acquires all of it. Not like what Rav was saying, that the down payment only acquires up to the value of the down payment. So my love, so let's say that just like Rabbi Yehuda and Rabbi Shimon Gamliel are saying by property, that when he gives a down payment, he acquires all of it. The same thing should apply to metaltalin as well. That when it comes to metaltalin, let's say the salt or whatever, once they gave $100 for a down payment, they acquired all of the salt. Not like Rav who says that they only acquire up to the value of the down payment. Right? So my lab, who adin the metaltalin, the bistame kani lihu lechulu. That by metaltalin also, by the salt, for example, the $100 down payment would acquire all of $1,000 worth of salt. Not like Rav says it's only acquiring $100 worth of salt. No. There's a difference between metaltalin and karka. Metaltalin bidistoma lo kani. that by bistama lo kani, that by metaltalin, by default, Rav would say that when you give $100 for $1,000 worth of salt, it only acquires up to $100 of salt, not all $1,000. Umayshna karka umayshna, and what's the difference between metaltalin and property? How come by property we're saying that when you give $500 down payment for a $1,000 field, you acquire all of it, but when you give $100 for $1,000 worth of salt, you only acquire $100 worth of it? Well, karka de bekaspa kanile, mamish, that karka, of course, you can acquire with money. You can, right? Karka, so since property can be acquired with money, so when you give money, even if it's only a down payment, kanile lechula, so even the down payment would acquire all of it. Metaltale, when it comes to metaltale, when it comes to movable objects, the low kani el kabule mishapara lo kani le kula. But when it comes to metaltalin, which the down payment is But when it comes to metaltalin, which are not acquired through money, you can't acquire metaltalin with money, only to the extent that if you renege, so then mishapara, you'll be in big trouble, like the generation of the flood. But it's not technically a way that we acquire movable objects, so then the down payment will not acquire all of it. Friends, I'm gonna hop off. Interesting daf. Peace out.